EmmaParaLeeInc, where the streets tell their own truth. Made for Me, Kennedy Brown, Character Introductions, and Ratchet Hood Synopsis. Character Introductions. Natasha Murphy. Pretty is as pretty does, but pretty alone won't save you. Natasha is vibrant, privileged, and beautiful. The youngest child and only daughter of the Murphy family in Fairmont, born into a life of comfort and expectation. At nearly 17, she has everything most girls dream of. Money, looks, a loving family, and a future wide open. But Natasha carries a secret insecurity that no amount of wealth can fix. Convinced that her lack of curves makes her less of a woman, she becomes obsessed with a shortcut to the body she believes will finally make her untouchable. Smart enough to know better, but desperate enough not to care, Natasha is both the architect and the casualty of her own plan. I was gonna be the new sexy. Consequences be damned. Or so I thought. Tamblyn Murphy. Loyal to a fault. Loud about everything else. Tamblyn is Natasha's older cousin, outspoken, fiercely protective, and the kind of woman who will lie for you at 3 a.m. and whoop your behind at 3:01. Raised by her uncle Reggie after losing her mother in infancy, Tamblyn has grown up knowing that love is action, not sentiment. She clocks Natasha's recklessness early and says so plainly, but loyalty runs too deep to walk away. When things spiral, and they absolutely do, Tamblyn is the one holding her cousin's head, screaming at the wrong people, and somehow still in the waiting room when the dust settles. Her emotions are her superpower and her Achilles heel, usually at the same time. Whooped her ass. But I would have picked her up. Drake. The man who shows up last and explains the least. Drake is the kind of man who positions himself as a solution while quietly being part of the problem. Streetwise, arrogant, and possessed of a temper that he deploys like a warning shot, Drake moves through Natasha's crisis with suspicious ease. Why did she text him instead of her family? Why does he know more than he lets on? And why does he feel so comfortable threatening a girl's life while the cousin he's driving bleeds out in the back seat? Drake may not be the villain of the story, but he's nobody's hero either. His truth comes out the way all bad truths do. Under pressure in a police interrogation room, with an officer he's already trying to charm. Snitches get stitches, but I wasn't going down for this. Josie Montgomery. She was good at the job. The job just wasn't legal. Once connected to one of the country's most respected cosmetic surgeons, Josie Montgomery had access, skill, and a clientele most practitioners only dream of. Then came the termination, the move back to Fairmont, and the home office. Now she operates in the shadows, offering discounted procedures to desperate young women who can't afford the real thing and won't ask enough questions. To Natasha, Josie is an opportunity. To anyone paying attention, she is a medical liability with a needle and a reputation, and it is only a matter of time before her house of cards comes down on top of somebody. It already has. She was making a little money on the side. If you know what I mean. Ratchet Hood Synopsis. Warning, warning. Read this before you let your cousin leave the house unsupervised. Warning. Alright baby, buckle up. 'Cause this ain't your mama's Lifetime movie. This is Made for Me, and it is a whole entire situation. Meet Natasha Murphy. 17 years old, silver spoon firmly lodged in her mouth, cute as all get out, and flatter in the back than your Aunt Vera's Sunday morning pancakes. Chilly, the girl is built like a capital P. Top heavy, hip forward, and the caboose? Honey, it done called in absent without leave. Now mama and daddy got money, and her big sisters Brandy and Undra are walking around Fairmont like walking architecture, thick top, thick bottom, the whole infrastructure. But Natasha? Girl inherited the looks and the nerve, but the booty rations had already been discontinued. So what does a privileged, determined, and entirely too unsupervised 17-year-old do? Does she accept herself? Does she do squats? Chilly, please. She hears through the cousin grapevine, specifically her rail-thin cousin Dendry, who showed up to Easter looking suddenly reupholstered, that Miss Josie Montgomery is back in town. Now Josie used to roll with some high-end cosmetic surgeon, catering to the rich and famous. But somewhere along the way Josie got fired, packed her tools, moved back in with her parents, and set up what is essentially a body shop, out of her home office. No license. No sterile environment. Just Josie, a needle, and a dream. For $3,000 she will build you a body. J-Lo and Delicious would allegedly be proud. Allegedly. Natasha thinks this is perfect. She's got her Walmart check, daddy matched her savings, and she's about to spend the summer at her cousin Tamblyn's in Fairmont, which means 6 whole weeks to transform herself before senior year. The plan? New booty. New chest. Maybe a tummy tuck for good measure. Come back to Greer looking like a whole different woman and walk into school like the theme music is playing. When I walk through. Now, enter Tamblyn. Tamblyn Murphy is Natasha's older cousin, raised by her uncle Reggie, who Tamblyn calls daddy like it is perfectly natural because that man raised her from age 1 after her mama Taya passed. Tamblyn is 17 going on 40, sharp as a tack, and she already smells the foolishness on Natasha the moment she arrives. But family is family, so she covers for her. Lies for her when she sneaks in at 3 a.m. Looks the other way when random boys get snuck in through the bedroom window. Because Tamblyn is loyal, even when Natasha does not deserve it. But when Natasha sneaks off to Josie's House of Horrors during their weekend at G. and Alan's, and comes back looking swollen, lopsided, and wincing every time she breathes, Tamblyn is not impressed. One breast is bigger than the other. Then the other one gets bigger. Then the whole chest is swollen. Tamblyn tells her point blank, "You gonna die fooling around with these injections. And they don't even work, you just swollen." But does Natasha listen? Absolutely not. She is already scheduling the follow-up. Tummy tuck. Full package. She is committed to the bit, honey. Now where does Drake come in? Oh, Drake. Drake. This man is streetwise, arrogant, unreliable, and has no business being anywhere near a 16, almost 17-year-old girl. And yet, here he is. When the follow-up procedure goes catastrophically wrong at Josie's house, when Natasha is bleeding and fading and whoever drove her there has long since vanished into the night, she does not call Tamblyn. She does not call her grandparents. She does not call her mama. She texts Drake. Because apparently Drake presents himself as a helper in crisis, but the man's hands are not clean, his motives are not pure, and his temper is a loaded weapon. Drake, to his credit, does pick her up, and then proceeds to hold that fact over Tamblyn's head like a trump card while Natasha is literally bleeding out in the back seat. Tamblyn is screaming, rightfully, wanting to know what happened, who did this, and why her cousin called this man instead of her. Drake, with the audacity that only the truly guilty can muster, threatens to slow the car down if Tamblyn doesn't shut up. And Natasha, barely conscious, weak as water, has to whisper to her cousin, "You have got to shut the hell up and let this dog-ass man drive." By the time they reach the hospital, the whole family is descending. Grandpa Seamus is already on 10. Mr. David and Ms. Sissy are flying in from vacation with their phones finally turned back on. Tamblyn is sitting in the waiting room looking like the Virgin Mary, and pretending she doesn't know anything. Drake is in a police interrogation room, comfortable because the officer is a woman and he's already running game. And Josie Montgomery? Josie is somewhere in Fairmont in her home office still taking clients. A ticking time bomb who has been building bodies without a license, and whose chickens are now very much coming home to roost. Made for Me is the story of what happens when a girl who has everything still doesn't feel like enough. When she gambles her life chasing a standard that was never real to begin with. When the people around her, the cousin who loved her, the man who used her, the woman who exploited her, all play their part in the disaster. It is funny until it isn't. It is ratchet right up until the moment it becomes a tragedy. And Natasha Murphy, laid up in that hospital bed, has to reckon with the fact that the only thing the procedure left her with is a very painful lesson, quite literally, in her behind. Warning: do not let your cousin sneak off to nobody's home office for body work. Check the credentials. Read the reviews. Ask to see a license. Because Josie ain't the one, and the only thing getting built at that house is a case file. Made for Me. Kennedy Brown at EmmaParaLeeInc.